The Manhattan grand jury's move late today, unprecedented, handing criminal charges to a former president, Donald Trump. The indictment, a political earthquake.
It's enormously historic, unprecedented to have a former president and a leading presidential candidate facing an indictment.
Trump was indicted for his role in allegedly approving an illegal hush money payment to adult star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election. Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, alleged in a 60 Minutes interview that she'd had an affair with Trump in 2006, just months after his wife Melania had given birth to their son Barron.
Did he mention his wife or child at all in this?
I asked, and he brushed it aside, said, oh, yeah, don't worry about that. We have separate rooms and stuff.
It was a payment Trump initially said he knew nothing about.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
But Michael Cohen, the former president's one-time fixer and lawyer, testified that he made the payment to Daniels at Trump's direction to silence her before the election. Trump's legal team now acknowledges the payment, but says Trump was trying to protect his family, not his campaign. Trump maintains he didn't have an affair with Daniels and that he did nothing wrong.
The heart of this case is this $130,000 in hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels before the 2016 election.
Okay, so picture this. You wake up, you're scrolling through the news, and boom, Washington, D.C. is absolutely losing its mind. Like total chaos. Multiple grand jury indictments just dropped, and they're all connected to Trump's circle. I'm talking FBI raids, political figures getting hauled in, and the whole Capitol is on fire with reactions. This is wild, you guys. This is absolutely wild. And here's the thing. This isn't just one indictment. We're talking multiple charges, multiple people, all happening at once. It's like watching dominoes fall in real time. The feds aren't playing around anymore. They're going after people in Trump's inner circle. And the fallout, oh man, the fallout is something else. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
From the beginning, it's been one witch hunt and phony investigation after another.
Tonight, the former president, now running for re-election, called his indictment political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. For weeks, security has been stepped up in New York City, and now all NYPD officers have been ordered to report for duty at 7 a.m. sharp for deployment across the city. The anticipation of an indictment dividing the country.
It's all a witch hunt. They're just trying to find a way to bring him down, and he's going to prevail.
Trump's awesome, and our country is in dire need of him back.
It makes me support him more because it's a witch hunt.
Ever since Trump first predicted he'd be indicted, he's been defiant, including at his first official campaign rally in Waco, Texas last weekend.
The District Attorney of New York, under the auspices and direction of the Department of Injustice in Washington, D.C., was investigating me for something that is not a crime, not a misdemeanor, not an affair.
The possibility of the indictment sparking security concerns at courthouses and the office of District Attorney Alvin Bragg, who received a death threat and a letter with white powder addressed to him. And as the grand jury continued to meet, Trump urged his supporters to protest, warning death and destruction if he were to be indicted. His words sparking condemnation from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries.
It's dangerous, and if he keeps it up, he's going to get someone killed.
The grand jury began convening in January and has heard testimony from a variety of people, including members of his administration's inner circle, Hope Hicks and Kellyanne Conway. Stormy Daniels also meeting with prosecutors as the probe wrapped up. The adult film actress reacting to the indictment news, tweeting, "Thank you to everyone for your support and love. I have so many messages coming in that I can't respond. Also, don't want to spill my champagne." Trump declined the Manhattan District Attorney's offer to testify, but many calling an indictment an overreach, a case that two previous Manhattan DAs declined to prosecute.
Alvin Bragg has failed miserably, and all of a sudden he wants to get tough on Donald Trump.
Today's indictment adding to a litany of legal woes and other potential criminal charges the former president is facing,
This has nothing to do with the potentially more serious allegations that are coming out of an investigation in Georgia to try to overturn the election, the investigation by the special counsel over the January 6th and the aftermath, as well as the investigation of the handling of classified documents. All of those could carry penalties, could carry allegations that are far more serious than we're talking about in this instance.
Trump repeatedly denying any wrongdoing in all the investigations, but today's indictment now possibly throwing a curveball into it.
So let me set the scene for you. October 16th, 2025. John Bolton, that John Bolton, Trump's former national security advisor, the guy with the mustache who's been criticizing Trump for years. He gets indicted. Federal charges. The FBI shows up at his office in D.C. and his home in Maryland. They're searching everything, and this isn't some minor thing. We're talking classified documents, national security concerns, the whole 9 yards. Now you might be thinking, wait, Bolton, the guy who's been on TV bashing Trump nonstop? Yeah, that's what makes this so crazy. Because Bolton hasn't exactly been Trump's friend lately, right? He wrote that whole tell-all book. He's been doing interviews, calling Trump dangerous, saying he's unfit for office. And now he's the one facing federal charges. Can you believe this? But here's where it gets even more intense. Bolton isn't the only one. Over the past few weeks, at least 3 major Trump adversaries have been hit with criminal charges. James Comey, you remember him, right? Former FBI director, the guy Trump fired back in the day. He's facing charges. Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, who's been going after Trump's business empire, she's in legal hot water too. It's like everyone who stood against Trump is suddenly finding themselves in the crosshairs. And look, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking this sounds political, right? Like, come on. All these Trump critics getting indicted at the same time? That's suspicious. And yeah, a lot of people are saying exactly that. They're calling it weaponized justice. They're saying the DOJ has been turned into Trump's personal enforcement squad. The accusations are flying from every direction. Trump himself. Oh man, Trump is having a field day with this. He's on Truth Social immediately, posting about witch hunts and partisan attacks. He's saying this is all about the 2026 elections, that his enemies are trying to rig the system before voters even get to the polls. And his base, they're eating it up. They're rallying behind him harder than ever. But then you've got the other side. You've got people saying, wait a minute, maybe these indictments are legitimate. Maybe these people actually broke the law. Maybe this has nothing to do with politics and everything to do with accountability. The DOJ is saying they've got evidence. They're saying grand juries reviewed the facts and decided there was enough to press charges. They're saying this is justice, not revenge. So who's right? That's the $1 million question. And honestly, that's what we're going to dig into today. Because this story, it's not simple. It's not black and white. There's so much happening beneath the surface. And most people have no idea what's really going on here. The timing alone raises eyebrows. We're heading into election season. 2026 is right around the corner. Control of Congress is up for grabs. And suddenly, all these indictments drop. All these Trump opponents find themselves in legal trouble. Yeah, people are noticing. The optics are, let's just say they're not great. And here's what really gets me. The media coverage. Turn on any news channel right now, and it's wall-to-wall coverage. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's got a hot take. But nobody's really explaining what's happening. They're just feeding you outrage, left and right, depending on which channel you're watching. It's exhausting. This is bigger than just Bolton or Comey or any individual case. This is about power. This is about who controls the justice system. This is about whether we can trust our institutions anymore. Because right now, it feels like everything is politics. Every indictment, every investigation, every decision coming out of D.C., it all feels tainted by partisan warfare. The streets of Washington are buzzing. Congressional offices are putting out statements, left and right. Democrats are calling emergency meetings. Republicans are holding press conferences. Social media is absolutely exploding with reactions. Everyone's picking sides. Everyone's got their narrative ready to go. And the American people? We're just trying to make sense of it all. We're trying to figure out who's telling the truth. We're trying to understand if this is democracy working or democracy dying. Because depending on who you ask, this moment represents completely opposite things. So buckle up, because we're about to break this down. We're going to look at what actually happened, who's involved, why this matters, and what it means for American democracy. And trust me, by the end of this, you're going to understand this story better than 99% of the people screaming about it on social media. Let's dive in. All right, so let's get into the details. Because the surface level stuff, that's just scratching the surface. There's so much more happening here. and it's way more complicated than people realize. First, let's talk about John Bolton. Now, Bolton's been a controversial figure for decades. He's a hawk, right? Super aggressive on foreign policy, pushed for military action in Iraq, wanted to bomb Iran, the whole deal. When Trump made him national security advisor back in his first term, a lot of people were shocked. But it made sense for a minute until it didn't. Bolton and Trump clashed hard. Bolton wanted military interventions. Trump wanted to pull troops out. Bolton pushed for confrontation with North Korea. Trump wanted to negotiate. Eventually, Trump fired him. Or Bolton resigned. Depends on who you ask. But either way, they split on bad terms. Really bad terms. After leaving the White House, Bolton went nuclear on Trump. He wrote a book called The Room Where It Happened. And let me tell you, he did not hold back. He called Trump's decision-making chaotic, said he prioritized his own re-election over national security, claimed Trump wanted to stop investigations into his allies. It was brutal. So Bolton became this figure, this Trump critic, with insider knowledge. He testified, he did interviews, he became a regular on news shows, talking about how dangerous Trump was. And a lot of Democrats, they loved it. Here was a Republican, a conservative, someone from inside Trump's circle, validating everything they've been saying. But now Bolton's facing federal charges related to classified documents. The indictment alleges he mishandled classified information, possibly shared sensitive materials without authorization, violated national security protocols. And here's the kicker. The evidence apparently came from DOJ investigations that were launched after Trump took office for his second term. Connect those dots. Trump's back in power. His DOJ starts digging into Bolton. They find evidence of classified document mishandling. They take it to a grand jury. The grand jury indicts, and boom, Bolton's in legal trouble. Now, is Bolton guilty? I don't know. Maybe he actually did mishandle classified docs. It wouldn't be the first time someone in government screwed up with classified materials. Look at Hillary Clinton's emails. Look at Trump's own classified documents case from his first term. Look at Mike Pence finding classified docs in his house. This happens more than people think. But the timing, come on. The timing is what makes everyone suspicious. Bolton's been out of government for years at this point. Why indict him now? Why not during Biden's administration, when Bolton was actively promoting his book and doing media tours? Why wait until Trump's back in office? Critics say it's obvious. They say Trump's using the DOJ to go after his enemies. They point to Trump's own words. He's been talking about retribution for years. He's promised to go after the people who investigated him, who testified against him, who tried to hold him accountable. And now that he's got power again, well, here we are. But Trump's defenders, they're telling a different story. They're saying the DOJ under Biden protected certain people. They're saying there was a two-tier justice system where Trump and his allies got hammered while Democrats and Trump critics got a free pass. They're saying Bolton actually did break the law, and finally, someone's holding him accountable. And you know what? That argument resonates with a lot of people because there is this feeling among conservatives that the justice system has been weaponized against them for years. They watched Trump get investigated repeatedly. They watched his associates get prosecuted. They watched the media cheer it all on, and they felt like their side never got the same treatment. So now when Trump's people are going after his critics, his base sees it as fairness. They see it as evening the score. They see it as justice that was long overdue. Are you kidding me? That's literally how they're framing this. And then there's James Comey. Oh boy, Comey's case is even more explosive. Comey, the former FBI director, who Trump fired back in 2017, setting off a chain reaction that led to the Mueller investigation. He's now facing federal charges too. The allegations against Comey reportedly involve leaking classified information to the press and making unauthorized disclosures about ongoing investigations. Sound familiar? Trump's been accusing Comey of this stuff for years. He's called Comey a leaker, a liar, someone who broke protocol to damage Trump politically. For years, those accusations didn't lead anywhere. Comey testified before Congress. He wrote his own book. He defended his actions, saying everything he did was by the book, that he was trying to protect the FBI's independence. A lot of people believed him. He was seen as this Boy Scout figure, this straight arrow who was trying to do the right thing in impossible circumstances. But now there's an indictment. And according to reports, the DOJ claims they have evidence that Comey did share classified information inappropriately. They're saying he disclosed details about investigations that should have stayed confidential. They're saying he used his position for personal or political gain. Comey's lawyers are fighting back hard. They're calling this politically motivated prosecution. They're saying the evidence is weak, that the charges are trumped up, no pun intended. They're arguing this is retaliation, pure and simple, because Comey wouldn't be loyal to Trump. And you know what? Both sides have a point. That's what makes this so messy. Yes, The timing looks political. Yes, it seems convenient that all these Trump critics are getting indicted now that Trump's back in power. Yes, Trump has openly talked about wanting revenge on his enemies. All of that is true. But also, maybe these people actually did break laws. Maybe the previous DOJ didn't pursue charges because of political considerations. Maybe now that the political winds have shifted, cases that were shelved are being reopened. Maybe this is what equal justice under the law looks like, even if the optics are terrible. Letitia James is another example. The New York AG, who went after Trump's business, who secured a massive fraud judgment against the Trump organization. She's now facing federal charges related to how she conducted those investigations. The allegations suggest she may have exceeded her authority, used her position for political purposes, coordinated with federal agencies inappropriately. James built her entire political career on going after Trump. She literally ran for office, promising to investigate him. She made it her mission, and she delivered. She got that huge civil fraud verdict, hundreds of millions of dollars. It was her big win, but now the tables have turned. Now she's the one being investigated. Now she's the one having to hire lawyers and prepare for legal battles. The irony isn't lost on anyone. Like, this is wild. Again, is she guilty? I don't know. But 3 Trump adversaries facing charges at the same time while Trump's in office? Yeah, people are noticing the pattern. The bigger question is this: what does this mean for American democracy? Because regardless of whether these indictments are justified, the perception is what matters. Half the country thinks this is necessary accountability. Half the country thinks this is authoritarian payback, and neither side trusts the other anymore. That's the real crisis. We've reached a point where every legal action feels political. Every indictment, every investigation, every prosecution, it's all seen through a partisan lens. Nobody believes in neutral justice anymore. Democrats are terrified Trump's weaponizing the DOJ to silence critics and consolidate power. They're comparing him to authoritarian leaders in other countries. They're warning about the death of democracy. They're saying this is how it starts. You go after your political enemies using the justice system. Republicans are convinced Democrats did the same thing, and now they're just playing by the rules the other side established. They point to all the investigations Trump faced. They point to the impeachments. They point to what they see as years of Democrats using every tool at their disposal to destroy Trump. And voters are stuck in the middle, trying to figure out who's telling the truth. The grand juries that issued these indictments, they're made up of regular citizens. They reviewed evidence. They decided there was probable cause to believe crimes were committed. That's supposed to mean something. That's supposed to provide legitimacy. But does it? When everything's so polarized, when trust in institutions is at an all-time low, does a grand jury indictment still carry weight? Or is it just another data point people interpret based on their pre-existing beliefs? I'll tell you what I think. I think most people have already made up their minds. Trump supporters think these indictments prove Trump's finally fighting back. Trump opponents think these indictments prove Trump's a threat to democracy. And very few people are actually looking at the evidence objectively. That's where we are. That's the state of American politics in 2025. Can you believe this? This is the mess we're in. This is where we are as a country. And these indictments, they're not making anything better. They're pouring gasoline on a fire that's already out of control. The media isn't helping either. Every outlet is spinning this their own way. Fox News is celebrating Trump getting justice. MSNBC is sounding alarm bells about authoritarianism. And nobody's just reporting the facts anymore. Everything's an opinion. Everything's outrage. Social media is even worse. Twitter's a war zone. Facebook's full of conspiracy theories. TikTok's got hot takes from people who probably didn't even read past the headlines. Everyone's an expert. Everyone knows exactly what's happening, except they don't. This is bigger than any individual case. This is about the future of American justice and whether we can ever trust it again. So let's break this down into what really matters. Because all the noise, all the outrage, all the hot takes, we need to cut through it and focus on the core issues. Point 1. These indictments are real, like actually real. These aren't just accusations flying around on social media. Federal grand juries have issued formal charges against John Bolton, James Comey, Letitia James, and potentially others. That means prosecutors presented evidence. That means citizens reviewed that evidence and decided it was credible enough to proceed. Now, that doesn't mean these people are guilty. An indictment isn't a conviction. It's just the start of a legal process. But it's significant. It means the justice system has been activated. It means there's going to be trials, legal battles, months or years of proceedings. And here's what that means practically. These are all prominent figures. Bolton's a former national security advisor. Comey ran the FBI. James is a state attorney general. When people at that level get indicted, it's a huge deal. It affects their reputations, their careers, their lives. Their legal bills alone are going to be astronomical. Think about it. These people are going to spend years in courtrooms, years defending themselves, years having their names dragged through the mud. Whether they're ultimately convicted or acquitted, the process itself is punishment. That's just reality. Point 2. The timing is absolutely suspect. Like, there's no way around this. All these indictments dropping within weeks of each other, all targeting people who've been critical of Trump, right as we head into the 2026 midterms. Come on. Even if every single charge is 100% legitimate, even if all these people actually broke laws, the optics are terrible. It looks like political prosecution. It looks like Trump's using federal power to settle scores. And Trump hasn't exactly been subtle about wanting this. He's talked openly about going after his enemies. He's promised his supporters that people who wronged him would face consequences. He's made it clear he sees the justice system as something that should work for him. During his first term, Trump was frustrated that his attorneys general wouldn't do what he wanted. He complained about Jeff Sessions recusing himself from the Russia investigation. He was angry when Bill Barr wouldn't back his election fraud claims. Trump felt like the DOJ should be loyal to him personally. Now in his second term, he's got people in place who are more aligned with his vision. And surprise, surprise, indictments start dropping against his critics. Yeah, people connect the dots, and that damages public trust in the justice system even more than it already was. Point 3. This is a test of American institutions. Can the DOJ operate independently? Can courts handle politically charged cases fairly? Can juries set aside their biases and focus on evidence? Those are the questions we're about to get answers to, because these cases are going to trial. There's going to be evidence presented, witnesses will testify, judges will make rulings, and eventually juries will deliver verdicts. If the evidence is strong and these people are convicted, does that prove the charges were legitimate? Or will people say the fix was in, that Trump stacked the deck? If the evidence is weak and these people are acquitted, does that prove the charges were political? Or will people say the deep state protected its own? See the problem? There's almost no outcome that restores faith in the system. We're so polarized that whatever happens, half the country will think it's proof of corruption. And that's terrifying, because a democracy can't function if people don't believe in basic institutional legitimacy. If citizens think the justice system is just another political weapon, then the whole foundation starts to crumble. Point 4. This is affecting the 2026 elections. Big time. Trump supporters are energized. They see this as Trump finally fighting back against the establishment that's tried to destroy him. They're rallying around him, donating money, showing up to events. They're more motivated than ever. But Trump's opponents, they're energized too. They see this as proof Trump's an authoritarian threat. They're organizing, mobilizing, preparing to fight back at the ballot box. They're warning about democracy being on the line. The question is, which side turns out in bigger numbers? Which narrative wins with independent voters? Do people see this as necessary accountability or dangerous abuse of power? Early polling is all over the place. Some surveys show voters are concerned about DOJ politicization. Others show voters think Trump's enemies should face consequences if they broke laws. It depends entirely on how you frame the question. What we know for sure is this: these indictments are going to dominate the news cycle for months. They're going to be debate topics. They're going to show up in campaign ads. They're going to shape how people think about Trump's presidency and what it means for democracy. Congressional candidates are already being asked about this at town halls. Do you support these prosecutions? Do you think they're politically motivated? Should Congress investigate? Every candidate has to have an answer ready. And here's the uncomfortable truth: both sides might be right. It's possible these people broke laws, and it's possible Trump's exploiting that for political gain. It's possible the charges are legitimate and the timing is calculated. The world isn't always black and white. Maybe Bolton did mishandle classified documents. Maybe Comey did leak inappropriately. Maybe James did overstep her authority. But also maybe those cases wouldn't have been pursued if Trump wasn't in power. Maybe they would have been handled as administrative matters or minor violations. Maybe the decision to bring federal charges was influenced by political considerations. That's the gray area we're living in, and it's uncomfortable. It's much easier to pick a side and stick with it, but the reality is messy and complicated and frustrating. So what happens next? Well, these cases work their way through the courts. That takes time, months, probably years. There'll be hearings, motions, pretrial proceedings, and eventually trials. During all that time, the political implications keep building. The charges hang over these individuals. Trump's opponents use them as evidence of his authoritarian tendencies. Trump's supporters use them as proof his enemies are finally facing justice. And meanwhile, the country gets more divided. Trust in institutions keeps eroding. People retreat further into their partisan corners. The center keeps shrinking. Compromise becomes impossible. That's the real damage here. Not what happens to Bolton, or Comey, or James individually, But what happens to America's faith in equal justice under law? Because once that's gone, once people believe the justice system is just another political weapon, it's really hard to get it back. We're watching something historic unfold. Whether it's the necessary correction of a two-tier system or the dangerous weaponization of federal power, that depends on your perspective. But either way, this is a turning point. The indictments are just the beginning. The trials, the verdicts, the appeals, all of that's coming. And every step of the way, it's going to fuel more controversy, more debate, more division. Trump's second term is shaping up to be just as chaotic as his first, maybe more so, because now he's learned from experience. He knows how the system works. He knows who's loyal and who's not, and he's making moves accordingly. Whether those moves are justified or dangerous, well, that's what we're all trying to figure out. And honestly, the answer might depend entirely on which side of the political divide you're standing on. This is the story that's going to define the next year of American politics. These indictments, these trials, these battles over justice and power and democracy itself, it's all connected. It's all building towards something. What that something is, we're about to find out. Are we heading toward accountability and restored faith in institutions? Or are we sliding toward authoritarianism and political persecution? Those are the stakes. Every American needs to be paying attention right now. Not just consuming headlines, but actually understanding what's happening. Because the decisions being made today, they're going to affect our country for decades. The grand jury indictments against Bolton, Comey, and James are just the opening act. There's so much more coming. More investigations, more charges, more legal battles. Washington's going to be in chaos for the foreseeable future. And through it all, we need to keep asking the hard questions. Are these prosecutions legitimate? Is the evidence strong? Are procedures being followed? Or is this political payback dressed up as justice? Those questions matter. The answers matter. And we can't let partisan spin distract us from seeking the truth. Stay tuned, because this is just getting started. And trust me, it's going to get a whole lot crazier before it's over. The battles ahead are going to test everything we thought we knew about American democracy. This is history happening in real time. Don't look away.